Hello, literary lovers. Welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to today's Alta Live, where this is the first Alta Live of issue 31. As you know, Alta comes out quarterly. We have got a brand new issue that is just hit. It is our issue 31, and our cover package is 25 books that define California. Now, first of all, I need to clarify. These are fiction books. The amount of mail we've gotten is fantastic, and we want it to keep coming. Letters at altaonline.com. Let us know what we've screwed up. Let us know what we've got right. We want to hear from you about that. So, what we're going to be talking about today is 25 books that define California and how Alta did as it pertains to that. We've got three amazing guests. The headliners today are really, if I do say so myself, we knocked it out of the park. John Szabo is the city librarian for the Los Angeles Public Library, which serves more than 4 million people, the largest population of any public library in the United States. He oversees the Central Library and 72 branches. Under his leadership, the library's major initiatives include immigrant integration and citizenship, civic engagement, digital equity, sustainability, and lifelong learning. Just this year, John was named Library Journal's 2025 Librarian of the Year. Whoa. Get this. When she started in the book business in 1976, Elaine Petrocelli, who founded Book Passage with her husband Bill, had a goal of creating the best possible bookstore for the people of Marin County. Elaine and Bill had a vision of a unique book business, one that would bring the world to Marin as well as bring Marin to the world. The ongoing support of people in Marin in the Bay Area, as well as the wonderful efforts of booksellers at Book Passage, has allowed them to achieve much of what they set out to do. Elaine herself was named 1997 Bookseller of the Year by Publishers Weekly. And if you were to go to Book Passage, I've done events at Book Passage. Every single author says, I never say no to Elaine. I am here because of Elaine. She is the indie bookstore queen of it all. We also have an author whose book made the 25. Susan Straight was born in Riverside, California, where she still lives with her family. She's published 9 novels, including Mecca, the book that we've included, a finalist for the Kirkus Prize and the Dayton Literary Peace Prize, and Highwire Moon, a finalist for the National Book Award. Her new novel, Sacrament, will be published in October and is a sequel to Mecca. She is a lifelong reader of California fiction. Can you believe this lineup? We've got well over 100 people in the audience. This is awesome. I am psyched. Thank you all for saying yes. These were all long shots, so I'm delighted. Before we dive in, a little bit about Alta in case you don't know us. We are a quarterly journal focused on California and the West. We host weekly events like this. Alta Live happens every Wednesday at 12:30. It's free to everyone. We also host the California Book Club. California Book Club usually happens the third Thursday of the month, and it is John Freeman in conversation with an extraordinary author, a book which we select. We write all sorts of kind of analytics. We have an excerpt. We do all sorts of fun stuff around the California Book Club. Those events are free, as are in-person events, including an April 15 event at Kepler's Books in Menlo Park. If you happen to be there, we're going to be discussing this very topic as well. So if you don't get it all out today, join us at Kepler's on April 15th. You can subscribe to Alta for $50 a year. You get 4 gorgeous issues of our magazine, as well as a special gift. It's hilarious and charming, and you're going to love it. Visit altaonline.com for more. This conversation will be recorded. We've received several emails concerned this won't be recorded. It will be, and it will be posted to altaonline.com later this afternoon. We're also going to send you email with links of anything else that pops up today, including a link to, I'm going to grab it right now, our list so you can all see it and analyze. If you're not an Alta subscriber and haven't visited our website, this, I've just popped it in the chat, is the list of 25 books our panel of experts have agreed is a loose term, are 25 novels that help define California. So what we're going to do today, because we've got 3 guests, is a little bit of a round robin Q&A. Absolutely ask questions in the chat. Hi, Pomona. Hi, Encinas. Hello, San Francisco, Pasadena, Castro Valley, Alaska, Morrison, Colorado, Texas, Larkspur, Fresno. Great. I'm delighted to see Claremont. Great to see such a big crowd. Okay, I'm going to go Elaine, Susan, John. Let us begin with my questions. And folks, don't worry, we are also going to get to your questions as well. Okay, Elaine, hopefully, I know you've got the magazine in stock. You can go to Book Passage in Corte Madera and buy it. What is your #1 pick for a novel that we missed? What should have been the 26th book on this list?
This is really a hard question because I have so many books I love. I go by in my store and pet them at night. So it's really hard to choose. But I love the mysteries that you all picked. I think every one of them is fabulous. But I feel that Michael Connelly is the ultimate LA, California writer. And every single one of his books is written about the time that he's living in then. So he's had many years. His current one is The Waiting with Renee Ballard and Harry Bosch, and they deal with cold cases that nobody cares about, police corruption, of course. I think he learned a lot by reading the other mysteries that we have in here. He's often talked brilliantly about Walter Mosley and his work. But I recently spoke to Michael, and he said that his next book he had to really think about because the fires happened. And so we know that's going to get in that book. It's always things that maybe we didn't see in the same way as everybody else. And as Michael anyway, who's right there on the scene. And he starts every day of his writing life early, looking out at the beauty of LA, or in his case recently, in the fires in LA. So I can't recommend that one enough, and any of Michael's books, but The Waiting is so contemporary that I would pick it next.
All right, Susan, what did we miss? We included you. What did we miss?
I mean, this was a big deal. I had to write all these things last night and the day before, and then I'm going to show you, like, there are just all these books.
Oh my God, that are attacking you.
I know. And I too, like Elaine, once I did an event in Berkeley, and a sociology professor from Cal came to the event, and he said he was teaching an entire class at Cal, a sociology class, using mystery novels, because he said they're the ones that get the geography right, because their plots are always about finding something and moving through the world in a specific world, like whether it's Chicago or DC. So I have to say I agree with Elaine on Michael Connelly, and my choice would be The Last Coyote, in which he finds out what happened to his mother. But I also have one more. It's Ross Macdonald. There's no Ross Macdonald on the list, and I get that. And like everyone's like, why do you and Elaine keep wanting mysteries? But Ross Macdonald is really my favorite. If you're going to do Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, but for me, it's all about Ross Macdonald and the imagery and the metaphor. And this one, The Underground Man, takes place during a raging wildfire in Santa Barbara. And my third novel was about a young Black firefighter working wildfires, which was my brother-in-law. So this book just means everything, because it's family secrets, Santa Barbara and LA, and Ross Macdonald, he writes like nobody else. But over here in my pile, of course, I have like Seth Chaw, Your House Will Pay. I've got so many things. So thanks for asking, though.
All right, John Szabo, you're the librarian for 4 million people. What did we screw up? What did we miss?
Yes, and as I sit here in Central Library with over 2 million books here in this building alone and 6 million books in this system, what a horrible task to come up with the ones that were missed. There are so many. I have papers. I'm surrounded by papers with ideas on what's missed. The first one that came to my mind as I looked at the list, and it is a great list that has been selected. It's a wonderful group of 25 titles. Of course, I'm constantly thinking, why couldn't they have done 50 or 100? But the title that came to mind was Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. And, I think about how not only those of us in California, but people really all over the world have sort of historically looked to San Francisco as a place of, a LGBTQ community, and how that book really captures that in such a beautiful way with incredible characters and at a really incredible time. And so that was the book that came to my mind. And then there were also authors on the list that I thought of, wow, there could have been other titles that they, like, and should it be East of Eden, or should it be Grapes of Wrath? I also thought there's some YA young adult novels like Island of Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell, which won the Newbery Award in the early 60s, and others as well. But the first one was definitely Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin. I was like, that should be on the list.
Well, you're not alone. In fact, we've been publishing the letters as we get them. We've been pushing them out online, and someone very sternly came in with Tales of the City. All right, along the same lines, which is one novel, you've only got to pick one, and you're not allowed to pick Susan, that we absolutely nailed? What is one that if we had omitted it, you would have been really angry about? Is there one on here that was just like, absolutely, Alta got it right? Elaine. Oh, I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Well, for me, it's the Joy Luck Club. I am so glad you brought in the Joy Luck Club. Before the Joy Luck Club, I felt that literature by Chinese American writers didn't get much attention, frankly. And it got published, we used to say secretly published, because people didn't get to know about it. The Joy Luck Club is Amy Tan's first novel. She absolutely hit it, but it was about so much more than a Chinese daughter and a mother. My Jewish mother was sure that Amy was half Jewish because she really understood how Jewish mothers feel. And those scenes with the women at the mahjong saying how horribly hard it's going to be because their daughter got into so many colleges, and how are they going to choose? While that's Jewish bragging, that's Chinese bragging, but it's a fabulous story. Her mother has passed. She has been asked to be in the mahjong game with the other three ladies. And, mahjong at that point, I remember my Jewish mother playing mahjong, and I thought, who plays mahjong? And then I went to Chinatown and I realized a lot of people play mahjong. And I think it's funny that mahjong is so back today that we teach mahjong lessons in our store. I mean, what is going on with mahjong? But the main thing about it is relationships and what it feels to be a dash American, where you have a second culture that's really strong and you're trying so hard to navigate it. And it's also one of the funniest books you're ever going to read. So I hope everyone will enjoy it.
Amy, I'm not allowed to say this at all, but Amy Tan fans, stay tuned to Alta. All right, Susan, unmute. What did we get right in addition to Mecca?
I have to say that every year I get obsessed with a book and I just walk around. I mean, I read 200 books a year. That's all I do is read and work. But Parable of the Sower for the past 2 years has just been my obsession, because I was too scared to read it, like when it first came out. And I knew that Octavia Butler lived in Altadena, and my stepsister lived in Altadena, and a lot of my friends, Jerby Turvalon the writer Gladys Rodriguez, they all lived in Altadena. But Parable of the Sower, I'll tell you just quickly, when COVID was going on, we also had a big fentanyl crisis here in Southern California that a lot of people don't talk about. And one thing about fentanyl users, because I live close to the Santa Ana River, is people light stuff on fire all the time. And Parable of the Sower is about that strange sort of movement of humans when things get very dire. And there's a lot of fire in it, and there's a lot of people being lost. And I just was obsessed with reading the Parable of the Sower and walking around, and there were all these arson fires in my neighborhood. Like my post office burned down, and somebody tried to burn down the Big Five, and the river bottom was going up in flames. And this was all 2021 to 2022. So I feel like Parable of the Sower is this just archetypal, iconic book about many times in American history and world history, but with Octavia Butler's beautiful, beautiful language. So even though that book still scares me, I read it almost as a comfort to say, like, these things are passing now, and maybe they shall pass.
All right, John, what did we get right? You can only pick one.
Definitely Parable of the Sower. That was the one that, of all the titles, seriously, that is the one that made me fist pump and say yes. And, you know, I'm a little biased because Octavia Butler was a patron of this library. She was a volunteer, an adult literacy volunteer at this library. She was on a city bus heading to Central Library to do research the day in 1986 when the fire happened, and has a personal connection and a personal story. We've named our makerspace here for her, the Octavia Lab. So we are all about Octavia Butler all day, every day. And, you know, this pioneer of African-American women in fiction and African-American women in science fiction, to have a dystopian fiction, a speculative fiction title as one of the 25, I think is important. And it's definitely a true California book. And so that was the one that really made me say yes. And also, and not to repeat my colleagues, but the Joy Luck Club, I remember when it came out in the late 80s, and I was working as a circulation clerk in libraries, and I remember how insanely popular that book was with a very broad audience. And we could not keep enough copies on the shelf in our library. And so that is a title that just is so enormously popular. So that was another one.
I do want to give a shout out we have in the audience Lynell George, our resident Octavia Butler expert. She wrote a beautiful book about Octavia Butler. So a big shout out to Lynell, who's also a regular Alta contributor and someone that we love very much. Okay, I'm going to jump over to you, Susan. You know, we've got this list of 25 authors, a lot of whom are dead. I mean, we've got Kerouac, Steinbeck, Didion, all sorts of, you know, really Dashiell Hammett. When you found out that Mecca was included in our list of 25 definitive California novels, how did it feel?
Did I want to die? No, I didn't want to die. I got a grandkid coming in Oakland. It was such a surprise because I've been writing. I published my first book when I was 29, and you know I'm 64, and I still write all the time. And I write the same way. I still write on a legal pad like all the time. But it was a big thrill because I've always written about a specific kind of Californian that people say is overlooked. And I always think it's funny because when we wake up every morning in my neighborhood, we don't be like, man, we're overlooked. My neighbors are like getting on. This morning, my neighbor Mario, you know, he got up at 4. He left at 4:12 to go fix the cell phone towers at the border of Calexico and Mexicali. And he was laughing because he was like, Susan, did you see the Mayans? Because you know that big tower? They said it was in Mexico, but I fixed it. Go look it up. I fixed it. And he just fixed all the cell phone towers above the Palisades fire. He sent me a picture. He was above Malibu. He was above the clouds, and he was fixing the cell phone towers. He does all the heating and air conditioning. So I'm saying, like, for us, California is this beautiful place. And with Mecca, I have a little bit of a character that's kind of like Mario, my next door neighbor, and a character that's kind of like the guys I hang out with all the time that are, just moving through the world. That just like, in fact, Beth, it's funny because when I started Mecca, Blaze had just reached out to me. It was early in Alta's.
Blaze is our editorial director and our boss at Alta.
Maybe for the second issue, he reached out to me and he said, "Do you have a short story that you want to work on?" And I was working, and this is for my SoCal people in the audience. I was working on a short story about a butcher at Stater Brothers. Now, if you know Stater Brothers, then you know we're talking about Southern California, right? And I wrote that story, and Blaze loved it. And that character, Bobby Carter, is also in Mecca. So there's a way I was writing about Coachella, and not the Coachella that's famous, but I was writing about a date palm garden and agricultural fields in Mecca and Oasis and Thermal. And I've known those places since I was 5. So it was a thrill because to me, Southern California and all of California is so big. You could never, ever capture California. And so
Sure.
I love reading the NorCal books. Like I have a whole bunch of ones to bring up today. But right now for Mecca, I'm obsessed with sort of the Santa Ana, San Bernardino, and Coachella. So the next book, Sacrament, starts 3 weeks after Mecca ends. So it was a big thrill for me to hear from you all and think about those same characters and how they haven't left my mind. So thank you.
We got a question from Deborah. What is Lynell's last name and the name of her biography? Well, thanks to our colleague Mary, who popped a bookshop link so you can buy it in the chat. It is A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky, The World of Octavia Butler by Lynell George. And it's very easy to find. And you should go to your local bookstore or bookshop.org or library and get it. Okay, so Elaine and John, for you two on this list, Elaine, we'll start with you. Is there any book here that is particularly popular with your shoppers, your customers? What's their number one fave on this list?
Oh, I didn't get ready for that, but I can tell you that There is absolutely right now a really big book in my store. And as you know, he has a second book that's
Tommy Orange. This is by Tommy Orange. They're by
Tommy Orange. And There was his first book, and nobody had heard of him. And I'm proud to say that we have a first editions club at Book Passage, and we picked him. So we feel like we own Tommy Orange, which we do not, because everybody else has happened to notice that he's one of our greatest living authors. I love it because so many things about it. Oakland doesn't get a lot of action. I'm so excited. Susan has a grandchild that's going to be born in Oakland, because then all we have to do is go bring her across the bay, and maybe we'll see her very soon. But there is a work of absolute genius. There's a scene on Alcatraz or several scenes, when the indigenous people are taking over Alcatraz. I remember that so clearly, and what happened and the tragedies, but seeing it from the point of view of the teenagers who were there because their parents brought them is absolutely fascinating. Who ever thought about that? But the whole part about Oakland and what it is, and what it is to people who are from indigenous cultures and indigenous history, and how so much in these books about how the West was won. One of the reasons I think I like that these books were chosen is that none of them acted like we didn't steal it. But here we are in Oakland, and they're going to have a powwow. And as we build up to the powwow, we get to know these incredible characters and care about them absolutely, and wonder about them. This is one of those books that after you've read it, you want to call somebody up and make them read it so you can talk to them about it. And to me, that's a great book. And by the way, it's really easy to sell.
John, what about with library patrons? On this list of 25, is there a particular favorite that you have to struggle to keep in?
Well, I think the classics are always popular. I will say I went immediately to our catalog when I thought about this, and Susan Straight has dozens and dozens and dozens of books and copies in our collection. Most of the copies of Mecca are checked out right now, so super popular. Definitely, definitely Mecca. But Walter Mosley is so popular with readers. Hector Tobar, the book on the list, but also
Librarian Nurseries was the book we picked by
yes,
Hector.
his book about the Chilean miners, also
And the
hugely.
tattooed soldier too, John, right? The tattooed soldier.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, for sure. And Octavia Butler's titles, of course, and also Carolyn C. with Golden Days is on the list, super popular, and books by her daughter, who's also a novelist, Lisa C., are super popular in the library. But Steinbeck and The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler are really, really popular as well. But people are in LA, they want to read about LA.
Someone is pointing out that a Vital California book is The Tortilla Curtain. It's on the list. We got it, Jane.
It is
It's
on
made our 25.
T.C.
All right.
Boyle.
TC Boyle. All right, Susan, I'm going to start with you again, and we're going to go around. What are some regions of California, or you could even go outside of California in the West, that are not represented in our list of 25 books? Or, corners of California. I know, Susan, you talk about, oh, here we go. All right, Susan. I don't know that we have time to go over all of those, but what regions, what corners of California and cultures of California did we miss?
This is one of my favorite books of all time, The Gangster We're All Looking For. I just taught it again, which is why it has all these. Set in San Diego. I have to say I love Steph Cha. I'm really good at this whole promoting other people's books. It's my job. Steph Cha's book I love because it's not just set in LA. This would have been my number 2 after Ross Macdonald. But this book is set in the Antelope Valley as well. And there's just people don't write about the Antelope Valley. And she does such a good job with it. I'm going to say, here's a few more quickly. Grand Street by Greg Saris, set in Santa Rosa. And his new book, his new book, The Forgetters. Grand Street set in Santa Rosa. Tupelo Hossman, Gods with a Little G, set outside of Reno. Rabbit Boss, the Thomas Sanchez classic, set in the Washoe, Reno area. Here's a book that my daughter that lives in Oakland and I absolutely love. Gloryland, which is about an emancipated former enslaved man who ends up working in Yosemite. Okay, Gloryland by Shelton Johnson. For Oakland, you got Jess Mowry, Way Past Cool. I'm going as fast as I can. My favorite San Francisco book of all time, after that, also with Armistead Maupin, is Alfredo Villa Jr., The Silver Cloud Cafe. He's writing about the aftermath of the Vietnam War and a Vietnamese woman and a Black woman from Louisiana who open a cafe after the Vietnam War. You got Leslie Tenorio in Milpitas, Andrew Lamb in San Jose. And then I got to give a shout out to my buddy Alex Espinosa, who wrote Stillwater Saints, which is set in the fictional Agua Mansa. And lastly, you're going to laugh because you know this is your buddy, but Todd Goldberg, The Low Desert. This is the best title because for us, the Antelope Valley is the high desert and this is the low desert. There's some Salton Sea books that Salton Sea stories in here. So there are lots of books sitting next to me, but I'm just saying that for me, there are a million Californias and I love them all. And I was working on this all night, just like John.
Oh, thank you. Special shout out to Todd Goldberg. If you want to laugh, just have a conversation with Todd Goldberg, but his books are fantastic.
And he's part of the conversation. I think he's joined us.
Certainly he got a shout out from Dan being like, what about Todd? Elaine, what corners of the West or California are underrepresented on our list?
Well, I think the gold miners are underrepresented and had so much to do with where we are. And Oddly enough, my friend Isabel Allende wrote 2 books about the gold miners, which are huge books at the time. And now my mind is blanking because I can't remember them. But I will tell you that you've got to read them because they show it from the standpoint of the miners and the young woman who's the miner. Lisa C. also had one about the mines. And I just think anything that we can read about how this all started is fantastic and important.
Dan also points out Wallace Stegner. He's on our list, Dan.
Yeah.
Check out the list. I put it in the chat.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that one of the reasons I live in California is Wallace Stegner. I mean, he brought so much of the, I don't know, the flavor of the part of California that at that time I had never been to. And I agree with the chat person. This is a truly great book. And I know there's a lot of at the time there was controversy about it.
There's still please read our wonderful article by Sands Hall about Angle of Repose.
That is great.
Potential plagiarism by Wallace Stegner, plagiarizing a female author of the day. We'll include.
Wasn't she his grandmother or something?
I've got that article was once a magazine happens for me, I move on to the next one. But yes, we will link to it. And our wonderful associate editor, Liz Casillas, is in the chat. She is taking copious notes. People are asking, will you write all of these down? Will you give us this list? We want Susan's list. We want Elaine's list, John's list. Liz, I really hope you're writing this down. We've also got a transcript, so we will figure it all out for you guys and make sure you get a list of.
I'll do a screenshot at the end of this pile.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan. Okay, John, what corners of California and the West were underrepresented on our list?
Well, I think Daughter of Fortune, which I think is the book that Elaine was talking about, was definitely one in the gold rush in California. But, you know, I think it's fair to say that the list of 25 was a bit city-centric. Understandably, there's some great, obviously amazing titles. But I think about Imperial County, you know, Salton Sea was certainly mentioned, but, you know, places in extreme Northern California, Northeast California, Modoc County, Siskiyou, Shasta, that area.
Are people writing great book? I mean, forgive me for my ignorance. Are really great pieces of literature coming out of those areas or being written about those communities?
Absolutely terrific fiction is coming out. I mean, I don't think it gets the attention, you know, nationally and even statewide, but really great work is coming out of those areas. And I'm certain that Susan Stack has, I'm sure, covers some of those geographies, but and you know, Central California as well. So, and there are so many Californias. It's so true. This is, as you know, Susan mentioned before, this is not Rhode Island. It's tough to come up with 25 titles that define this incredibly diverse state. The diversity of the people, the diversity of the topography, the culture, the background. You know, we're a state of immigrants. That adds so much richness to the novels that are written here.
I will point out, I know we've gotten some shout outs for some of these authors. The panelists who were involved in picking these books include Steph Chaw and Todd Goldberg. You know, there are a number of writers. Ishmael Reed was included in kind of how we're selecting these. So please know, Lynell George was included in this. So is it possible to get all the panelist lists? Kevin, I'm going to do my absolute best. These are literally the 3 most well-read people in the world. So their list of books is going to be exhaustive, but we will do our best. Susan, go ahead.
There's one book that I don't have here to screenshot because I give it away every single time. I've given away probably 30 copies of it, but it's on your list. And I wanted to give a special shout out to it. And John, it's perfect. It's Under the Feet of Jesus by Elena Maria Viramontes. So I have taught that book every year since 1996. I've been at UCR since 1989. So Under the Feet of Jesus by Elena Maria Viramontes is a classic seminal book. And when I teach it, life-changing for many of my students who, like me, are first-generation Californians and Americans. So it takes place, John, in Buttonwillow. And it's partly in East LA, partly in Mexico, but the Buttonwillow part is the most important landscape. And I can still quote passages from this book. There's a young man named Alejandro who's picking peaches in an orchard, and the wasps, you know, their legs are dangling like golden threads near him while he's picking the peaches. So, and that's, yes, Gordo by Jaime Cortez, which is from Dan Lewis, set in Watsonville and Pajaro. But the Elena Maria Viramonte is the Central Valley. You've got Manuel Munoz, who's in this stack over here. You have Tim Z. Hernandez, who's from Orinda. And it's just the Central Valley has some gorgeous, gorgeous books that people need to know about as well. But Elena, it was a thrill to me, Beth, that she was on that list, because I teach that book every year, and my students say this book changed my life. And I feel like I can write about my people now. So thank you for letting me do that.
We are going over, but I want to end, and there's a request for let's do a list on nonfiction books. And so I realized I did not, some of these, you know, folks, I did reach out to John, Susan, and Elaine in advance and say, you know, listen, you got to get prepared. Here's what we're going to talk about. Because we're asking big questions and not everyone can remember the entire library in the world without a little prompt. I did not ask you this question, and I think I want to end with it because we're getting a number of people in the chat. What is a California nonfiction book? If Alta were to do a 25 nonfiction books that define California or represent California, what,
Oh my God.
drum roll please, is your pick for a nonfiction book that deserves to be on that list? Who dares to go first?
Are you talking memoir, or are you talking general nonfiction? Because I think you could do a whole memoir. You could do 25 of the best memoirs set in California. But in terms of like beautiful nonfiction books that couldn't be anywhere but California,
Yes,
I'd
let's
say
do that.
Mark Arak's, all of his books about the Central Valley. And I love Jessica Garrison, The Devil. Didn't bring it over here because it was nonfiction. Jessica Garrison wrote about a serial killer in the Central Valley, and I read it 4 times. It's just
What's it called?
I don't know. The Devil in
We're gonna find it. Liz, what's her name? What's the author's name?
Jessica Garrison. She writes for the LA Times.
Okay, Jessica Garrison. I am a true crime lunatic.
It's astonishingly good, and those would be 2 general nonfiction books I would recommend.
Okay, Elaine, are you ready to
No,
tackle this?
I'm not.
Okay, I'm
there's
gonna
so
jump
many.
to John.
I have a problem. I want to tell you about all of them. So come back to me. I'll pick
Okay.
one.
Okay. All right, John, nonfiction.
First one, and you know, it's a very LA book, but City of Quartz by Mike Davis, I think, is absolutely something that would be on the list. And the one that I would also offer that would be part of that incredible group of memoirs that Susan mentioned is Farewell to Manzanar. Just a really, really important memoir.
Who wrote that?
Jean Wakatsuki Houston.
Okay. Elaine.
I can't do this. Too many.
I know.
We pushed her too far.
Okay, but I've got to tell you, because there's one I really want to talk about.
Okay. Okay.
But it's not nonfiction. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And that's Dharma Bums.
It's on the list.
When I was a little girl living in the Midwest in Indiana, a librarian let me read Dharma Bums.
Yeah.
And my librarian let me read anything, which I loved. I thought, I love this. This is so weird. I've got to see this. I want to live there. I want to hang out in that bookstore. I want to be there. And so I think it's one of the great books that, you know, makes people think of that era, of an era when books were, you couldn't get them into the country, when very, very brave booksellers like City Lights and Mr. Kepler of the original Keplers brought books in, contraband books, right in the middle of the worst kind of terrible government we had till now. But no, I'm not political. But I really hope that people will go back and read it again, because it will give you such a sense of where California was in that historic time.
This has been, the chat is popping off. This has been such a fun conversation. I feel that I have pushed you all perhaps a little too far in picking favorites. It's like a Sophie's Choice of literature. So I hope that you have a relaxing rest of the afternoon. I am so grateful, John Szabo, Susan Straight, and Elaine Petrocelli, for your generosity of spirit, enthusiasm for literature, willingness to take time out of your very, very busy schedules for this conversation. Folks, in that well over 100 people came today, we will do our absolute best to try and go through the transcript and name as many books and get you as many links as possible. We do encourage you not only to visit your local library, but to support independent booksellers. If you are not near an independent bookstore, one like Book Passage on Tamil Vista in Corte Madera, or in San Francisco's Ferry Building, then we encourage you to go to bookshop.org, where you can still support independent booksellers and order online. So with that, thank you all so very much. Octavia's Bookshelf, shout out to them. Thank you, everyone. Susan.
Thanks for inviting me. If you DM me on Instagram, I'm gonna take a picture of these right now, and you can tell me what else you think I've missed. But I think that's the best way for me to get a picture of this big stack here. And I will go find the Devil's, I think it's the Devil's Highway, but it's not that. So anyway, and thanks so much. And yeah, Bookshop, if you want to order Sacrament, which comes out in October, do it on Bookshop or at Skylight. Skylight is our great independent bookstore in Los Angeles, and I love them.
And I forgot the library book by Susan Orlean.
Someone pointed that out.
I was thinking of that.
Absolutely. The library book is one of the best nonfiction books about a California book. So shout out to Susan.
Let me just make sure Susan Orlean is not here to see the omission.
I'm sorry, Susan, if you're
The library book. Yes, absolutely. All right, folks, before you leave, join us next week. We're going to do a total 180. The cover story is 25 books that define California, but we've got so much more in here, including a really interesting environmental story on West Coast sea urchins and why we need to start killing them. So join us next week. We're going to talk about kind of the invasive sea urchins that are screwing up the kelp system all along the Pacific coast. That is Wednesday, April 9th here at Alta Live at 12:30. Again, this will be recorded. This was so much fun. Thank you, everyone. Go read a book.
Thank you so much, Beth, for inviting us. This was really fun.
So fun. Thanks, guys. Take care.